Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Curricular activity. Forums obviously kept the boys engaged, active, and efficiently would endow that they would utilize their time. But the activities that took place in the morungs, they were not very well organized. Okay. They used to take place spontaneously. There was no proper schedule, there was no proper timetable for anything. And these activities were just organized spontaneously, and the people were supposed to respond as naturally as they can. Okay? So, Morung being an institution where the young people were trained to be in discipline, they were trained to follow the instructions of the authorities and to look and get knowledge about every field of life. Since there were no proper schools, there were no formal educational institutions. Therefore, these morungs played a very important role in ensuring that the young people were actually becoming responsible and were becoming efficient members of the society. In the morung, the people were taught how to carve the wood. Carving the wood means giving the wood an appropriate and beautiful shape. Work related to cane, bamboo work, making baskets, blacksmith, working with the iron. These were the kind of activities that they were involved in. And when the girls would stay in the dorms, they learned how to make the cloth and to do embroidery. So, in order to ensure that the rich culture, the rich heritage of Nagaland was preserved, that it was transferred from generation to generation, they were even taught the art of dancing and singing. Okay? There was folk music, there was folk dance, there were folk tales, which were narrated to these people who were a part of the morung, so that they would keep alive the cultural heritage of Nagaland. And when that would be alive in them, they would very well be in a position to transfer it forward. In the morung, the men and the women, the men basically, they learned to give a shape to stone and wood, to design the clothes, especially the shawls. They also learned other handicrafts that were taught in the morung. The learning and the teaching process was, continued, was taking place in this form. There was no formal schooling, there was no formal education, but it is through these things that the learning and the teaching process was taken care of. Singing was very common. Even when the people would work in the field, they loved to sing to themselves. Folk songs which had different genres, they were romantic. These folk songs talked about some historical background of the tribes, or they wished for the well-being of some people, or talked about the heroic deeds which were done by somebody, or even the songs which represented the different seasons. So all these kinds of songs were sung and enjoyed by the people while working. Naga dance is actually very famous. So Naga dance, along with the music, and there was some sound, kind of a sound which was produced at the same time. So Nagas have a different types of dance forms that they perform. These dance forms are performed during some social function, during some religious ceremonies. So the Nagas basically love to sing and to dance. Now, what were the kind of folk tales and the traditional history, that was basically narrated orally, verbally? What are folk tales, first of all, dear students? Folk tales are basically, some stories which are related to mythological characters, and they have some moral too. Okay? So these folk tales or some sort of an oral narration was always narrated to the students, to these people who were a part of the Moro. Why was it a part of their Morum culture? Because they believed that it was because of these folk tales that the rich culture of Naga was still alive. They believed that it was because of these folk tales that the present generation would learn about the rich culture that the Nagas had in the past, and they would be able to transfer and transmit the same to the next generation. Okay? So, storytelling was considered to be a very important activity of the Morums, and it was very much organized. So, there was a proper storytelling session that was organized in the Morum. There were some priests or some elderly people. They would come, they would sit at a place, they would be well prepared and would tell the students about the stories related to the past. The folk tales narrated by them had something, related to, again, different genres were touched upon. There was some romantic episode also in those stories. But more or less, whatever story was narrated by them, it was connected to the custom, to the traditions, to the beliefs, to the norms of the Nagas. Then the elders would even tell the younger ones about the war, about the manners, discipline, about the heroic deeds of the brave soldiers, about the warriors. Then they even talked about how, the traditional culture and heritage of Nagaland has been so well preserved. So these folk tales actually served a very important role. It was a link, it was a connection between the past and the present. So it is through these folk tales that the past generation would connect with the present generation with the hope that the same would be transmitted to the next generation. Next, we had morungs. These morungs actually serve the purpose of guest house also. As I told you, that one could sleep there without paying anything. You just had to take part in the activities of that place. So morung was a kind of a center where you were taken care of, where you had visitors, where you could come, you could stay for some times, and they were taken care of well. If you would go to a morung for some time, you would not get bored for sure. Then we have courthouse also. Now, Morung gave these young children an opportunity to talk, to find solution to the problems by talking. Okay, the reason why the word courthouse is used here. What is a courthouse? A courthouse is where there are two parties talking to each other about some problem and finding a solution, right? Similar was done at the Morung also. The difficult problems that the people of the villages were facing, those problems were brought up in the Morung. And in the Morung, the final decision was always taken by the elderly men, the old men. Okay? There were a few cases when the dealing was done even outside the Morung, but more or less the important decisions were taken by the elderly there. The village chief elder or alumni of the Morum. Alumni of the Morum means somebody who has been a part of the Morum. They were the judges and they were the ones who would give their verdict over some problem. And whatever decision was given by them was the final. Okay? That was to be agreed and accepted by both the parties. There was even wrestling, which was one of the activities that took place in Morum. And it was quite common among the boys of Morum. They would wrestle inside the Morum also, as well as outside the Morum in the open space. There were inter-Morung wrestling competitions, different Morung, the boys of different Morungs were fight together. Inter-clan, boys of different tribes would fight together. So it was a very popular game among the boys at that time. There were organizations that were very interested in popularizing this game, and therefore wrestling was indeed one of the most popular games that was played by the Naga people at that. Then we have the military strategy. Now, obviously, one always had to train the youngsters to be a part of the army, right? So, in the past, it was very common for the villages to fight with each other, have a war with each other. Okay, they would plan to raid and to attack the other village. And all these strategies were planned and discussed in the Moro room. So, whatever equipment were used by the people of that time, like the spears, shields, dows, guns, etc., were always kept in the Moro. Even the head of the enemy, the heads of the enemy, they were also preserved in the Moro. You must have heard about a very old culture of Nagaland that was head hunting. So, when they would kill an enemy, they would cut the head of their enemy to keep and preserve it with itself so as to praise, so as to appreciate for what they've done. So, these heads of the enemies were also preserved in the Moro. So, this training was given to the youngsters. So, Morung basically was an autonomous body. Autonomous means there was no organization that was running the Morung, that was governing the Morung. It did not have any external influence. Whatever activities were done, whatever things were planned, whatever things were decided, it was decided by the senior members of the villages. There was nobody else who could interfere in the governance and in the administration of the Morung. According to J.P. Mills, no one who is no longer a member of the Morung. So, if you are not a member of a Morung anymore, you cannot say anything about the Morung or anyone. And if you do so, you were going to be fined. So only if you were a part of the Morung could you speak about it, otherwise no. So a Morung was basically a microcosm, a small unit of a village, and it was run by itself. There was no organization running it. They were tested, the young boys who were a part of the Morung were tested on how courageous they were, on how strong and powerful and tolerant they were. And therefore, the Morungs played a very important role in preparing these youth to be a part of some higher position and some higher authority in the village as well as in how community service was taught to these young men in the Morung. So, the male members who were a part of the Morung, they actually served the role of a messenger. They would carry the messages to the other villages, and they would also help the families, the people in the village who needed any kind of a help. They took part in the community service by cleaning the village, by repairing the houses, by repairing the platform of, the village as well as the houses. Every man of the village was given a password. Okay. If they were attacked by somebody, they would use that password, and every person would come there with their equipments to attack the other person, to attack the enemy. Now there was a hollow tree also which was kept in the Morung, and that was beaten by wooden sticks. So that was also one of the activities that the people of the Morung took part in. Now, obviously, how the reason why this drum was beaten with the help of sticks was to indicate the kind of situation, to collect the people. So this was a kind of an alarm. This was a kind of a signal that was given by them. If the situation was fierce, it was a little, alarming, the sound would be alarming. And if it was not that serious, then the sound would be. So basically, this log of wood, which was hollow, could produce a tremendous, and it was also used as a musical instrument in some of the occasions. So basically, Morung was a charitable organization. Here, the people, the kids who did not have parents, the widows, that is, the women who would lose their husband, the poor children, the disabled, the weak people were also given shelter in these homes. They were taught how to share with each other. They were taught how to take care of each other in everyday scenario. And the people were taught how to be selfless, how to be sympathetic and empathetic and kind towards everyone. Everybody in the Mo room always performed the activities with a lot of energy, with a lot of enthusiasm, and they were always selfless. They had no personal benefit in working towards the society. They always wanted to just help the people and make them happy. That was the only intention they had. Now, let us talk about the 7 important places in Nagaland. So we know that Nagaland is a beautiful place. It is a hilly region which is situated in the northeast of India and is an amazing tourist destination because of the beautiful hills and the valleys which are extraordinarily wonderful. So we are going to talk about some of the tourist destinations, 7 most beautiful places that are very good for the tourists. Why? Because the atmosphere is so peaceful that you can actually hear the wind blowing. It can make you feel relaxed. The landscape is so beautiful. You can see the sunrise and sunset that can make you feel happy and that can elevate your spirits. The hilly region is also wonderful for trekking, for camping, for rock climbing. So that is a beautiful place for enjoying. So, what are the top 7 places that we have that can be visited by one? First is Kohima, which is the capital of Nagaland. This place is one of the best tourist attractions. This is situated at a height of 1500 meters above sea level and has got a beautiful view to offer. You love to go to this place because of the trekking experience that you can have, and there is a lot of trekking and camping that is associated with it. Second, we have Dimapur. Now, Dimapur is again one of the major tourist attractions into Nagaland. This is the place you would enter first when you go to Nagaland. This is the place where the commercial, the trade takes place. For those who love nature, they are always going to fall in love with the beautiful landscape of this place. The people who love history are going to fall in love with the 10th century Kachari ruins, the remains of the Kachari tribe that are still preserved at Dimapur. This is how Dimapur looks like. Next, we have Mukokchung. Now, this place is very famous for its rich culture, for its rich heritage, and is an important part of Nagaland. Again, the beautiful hills and the sound of the river running nearby is going to leave you astounded. This is the beauty of this place. Now, this place is very traditional in nature, and it gets vibrant. It gets very active during the different festivals. Now, most of the owls are the tribal people of Nagaland, the tribe basically. They, in this place, have converted to Christianity, but still they are very well connected to the tribal features, to the characteristics that they had prior to this conversion. So this is how Mokokchung looks like. Just see how beautiful it is. Now, if you want to look into and dwell into the rural life, we all know that to be a part of the village, especially for those who have always been a part of a city, is obviously a dream come true. So, if you think of visiting and going to a village, then you must visit the Vokha village, which is the homeland to the Lothar tribe. Now, this land is surrounded by pineapples, oranges, plums, and all these fruits are grown using the organic methods, and there are no pesticides that you can find here. People who love nature are going to just love roaming around on the paths and just going to the forest. This is how Vokha, the look of this Vokha village. Then another place to visit if you go to Nagaland is Mon. It is 897.64 million altitude height above the sea level. It is a mystic place. This place is connected with the tribe and is going to connect you to the history, to the mythological characters of Nagaland. Now, this is situated in the northeastern part of the state. This place is again a delight for those who love nature. The landscapes are beautiful, and you can even view the Assam plains from there, because of being situated at such a height. The next place is Fek. Now, Fek region is very rich in the flora and fauna. The wildlife of this place is very amazing. It has got beautiful landscape. Again, this place is surrounded by a lot of forests, and 70% of Fek is occupied by the forest, and you can expect to be surrounded by the natural. There are beautiful mountains, there are beautiful landscapes that are going to lead you shore. This is Fek. Next place is Kifire. Now, this place is even over the mountain Saramati, which is the highest peak in Nagaland. And there is a small town in Kifire district. Now, Kifire has some of, again, wonderful landscapes that you can see. This lies to the east of Myanmar. Myanmar, we all remember that it is outside Nagaland. Those who love adventure, they can actually have a wonderful time here. Trekking, canoeing, then rafting are a couple of activities that are very well enjoyed in this place, Kifaya. This is how Kifaya looks like.